All right, hey everybody, it's me, it's Mike again, and we're back for day 7 of the hashtag Give It 100 challenge. And once again, this challenge for me is basically to learn how to do sweep picking on my guitar. Now, if you're more experienced than I am, you can feel free to laugh at that, but remember where you came from, and it takes a lot of work. And one of my favorite sayings is, I didn't realize how hard it was to play an instrument till I tried to learn another one. Because I remember when I was about 10 years old, I started on saxophone. And at that age, you just kind of go through with it, and it's a lot of work, and you don't really like it a lot of time, and it can really break you down, and you get sick of it. You don't really know why you're doing things or what you're doing them for, but then you fast forward a few years, and you, hey, I kind of like this. This is a lot of fun, so let's play this music thing. Anyway, after I got out of college, I was inspired by Drum Corps International, and that's when I took up the snare drum. So I would go to my school's practice room, because I lived in an apartment where I couldn't play, after I bought my own drum, and started to teach myself to learn how to play snare. And I don't think I got very far with it, but it was good enough that people from the pipe band that was at school had asked me to join with them, and I wound up playing snare for many years, about 10, in Scottish pipe bands. So I wore the kilt and the whole 9 yards. But the point was, when I started to play that instrument, it had been probably 14 or 15 years after I'd started saxophone. And that's when I recalled, oh wow, this is really difficult. This is a brand new instrument. There's challenges galore with it, and to this day, I still want to learn something on it. I picked up the guitar about 15 years ago, and I wanted to play exclusively electric guitar. And at first, it was just like, I just want to make some fun. It can't be that hard, right? You see all these guys and women playing. Can't be that hard, right? Well, I learned once again that it's one of the hardest things to do. So one of the techniques that I wanted to learn and have been thinking about for a while was sweep picking. And along came at the beginning of the year a video about somebody who took 100 days to learn to do that. So I'm recreating that for myself. Anyway, a few more words before we get started. So I was inspired on lunch today by watching a couple of very important Steve Vai videos where he's interviewed, I believe, for Guitar World, and talks about the whole practice from the beginning of, why would you pick up the guitar on up into technique and the importance of things. And a lot of the themes that he echoes in there are themes that I've come to realize, whether playing saxophone or drum or guitar. And so one of the things in listening to some of my playbacks already from the first week of this has been simply that even though I'm developing a little bit of facility with this technique, I still need to work on being very clean and having a lot of economy of motion, which is simply don't burn a lot of calories moving your fingers all over the place. It's got to be, it's got to be very fluid. Keep your fingers close to the fretboard, and just ingrain it. Now, obviously, I don't have 10 hours a day or 14 hours a day working as a full-time professional to develop my skills, but I thought one challenge that's good for me, as somebody who doesn't get to play very often, would be to play a few minutes every day, or as many days as I can. And even though I'm tired today, from another long day at working at NASA, I'm still going to play a few minutes. And this is also something I'm trying to work on in my own other practicing too, where for me a few minutes is only a tease. And usually I'll play an hour and a half or 2.5 or 3 hours depending on the instrument, usually on a weekend. But I don't have that time during the week, and so rather than play nothing at all, I decided this challenge would be a good way to see if I could do a few minutes each day and see how that goes for me. I'll leave you with this before we get started. There's a saying, which you may have heard of before, which basically says, don't underestimate your talent until you try to apply it 100 times. And so along those lines, I'm trying to do that. Now, I'm not just playing the exercise one time. I'm playing it several times, or I'm attempting to play it several times each session. And typically what I've been doing is practicing before I make the videos. There's no sleight of hand or anything nefarious about doing that. It's just kind of getting the fingers warmed up. I haven't done that today, and so I want to start from sloppy scratch for today and see how we go. Okay, and as usual, I will set my handy little timer for 6 minutes. Okay, so I lied. The last thing I'm going to tell you before I play is a reason why I use 6 minutes. So when I first started working in the defense industry, one of the things that they had you do was, they're very particular about their time cards. And I don't know if you work in industries like that, whether it's in, you work in a law office or anything along those lines. Very particular. And it was easier to record time in increments of tenths of an hour, which is what my first company required. So I got real used to my life revolving around 6-minute increments. And to this day, whether it makes me weird or it's just an OCD feature of mine, I tend to think in 6-minute increments of things. So almost everything I do somehow gets rounded to 6 minutes because it's the easiest thing to think of. That's just a little quirk about me. All right, enough of that. With my trusty Steve Vai pick in hand and my 7-string Ibanez custom guitar into the Mesa Mark V through an exotic EP booster, we shall now continue with day 7 of the Give It 100 challenge. Which, by the way, Marty Friedman, I also watched a video of his today, said it's kind of a useless technique to learn. It's unmusical, it's boring, it's whatever. Pick your poison. But for me, it's something I want to learn, so here we go. So I'm going to play an A minor arpeggio. And a word about that, the video that I'm working from, Michelangelo Badio, downtunes his guitar so that he'll explain it to you as an A minor arpeggio. But in reality, if you play the tab along with him to sound in tune, it turns out that it has to be adjusted by a fret. So take that for what it's worth. If you want to see the link, I'll post that too. And now your 6 minutes of daily torture. All right, so just a few words about that, and this is more for me than it is for you probably. I noticed a lot of things in the process so far about doing this technique. One of the things that's hard to control, obviously, is I have a lot of gain going on, and so I get a lot of what I call artifacts, which if you're playing in a clean channel or if you were playing like an acoustic guitar, they probably wouldn't be there. And also, if you had facility that I don't have, you'd be able to roll through these probably pretty easy. I obviously have a weak pinky, so I'm having trouble reaching back over there and getting accustomed to this. And it's not so much the reach for the hand or anything, but really, like Vi said again, and I've heard it from many teachers, going slow is the key to getting anything. So really what I should be doing is something like this. Making sure that every note is clean and easy, and it should be effortless. Now we're on day 7, so this is only 7% of the way through the process, so I guess I shouldn't expect too much at this point. But it can certainly feel like after 7 days of sounding about the same, like I'm not getting anywhere. But check back in 2 weeks, check back in at day 50. We'll see how it's going at day 75 when we're closing in at day 100. But really, another thing that Vi said in this video that I'm thinking of is that every note that you play should have good intonation, and it should have good tone to it. So it's really important to be able to hit every note and get it right. Now that said, that's if you really want to master the instrument. Obviously he is a master of the instrument. Whether or not he would agree with that is a different story. But regardless, for me, I don't want to be sloppy. I don't want to be unable to play this instrument. And so even with this simple exercise, I'm learning a lot about practice psychology that works for me, and also the ability to be able to challenge myself to play every day when I don't normally do that, and I should, because as many studies have shown, obviously to play a little bit every day is a lot better than to go and play a lot with gaps in between. But it's going to be a control thing and a finesse thing, like he says, so that you work on every single note to get that clean. Anyway, one last run through it, and then I'll say goodnight. There you have it. That's day 7 in the books. Thanks for watching.